Now, what can I get you boys? You thirsty, you hungry, or you just driving through? Maybe like a beer or something a little harder? Hey, you know, we happen to make the state's best pepper steak.
No, thank you, ma'am. We may be sucking back a few beers a little later on. We'll be here all night. You see, we're the band.
You are? Oh, gee, that's nice. Hey, Bob, this is the band.
All right. What kind of music do you usually have here?
Oh, we got both kinds. We got country and western.
Jake, are you sure this is the place?
Yeah, sure.
Hello guys, and welcome to another episode of the Redhead Boy podcast. It is Wednesday the 13th of May, and welcome. It's number 9. We're nearly in double figures. I'm super chuffed about that. Super chuffed. Super excited. Super loved doing the podcast last week. Thank you for the 30 people that have listened to that episode. I super appreciate it. And we've got a good one today. That was what I played at the beginning of the show, was a little clip from Blues Brothers classic film. And the reason I chose that today to open the show, it is my guest, one of my guest's favourite film quotes. And my guest today is aspiring cinematographer and filmmaker Alexander Derry. We studied at film school and we had a super awesome conversation yesterday, chatting everything about filmmaking, catching up with him what he's been doing here in the UK and in Denmark. And yeah, it was super awesome to chat with you, Alex. Thank you so much for coming on. And without further ado, let's crack on with this episode. Thanks so much for coming on. I feel like it's been too long. I've barely seen anybody from film school days and everything. So yeah, thanks for coming on.
Same. I haven't. I've been in contact with John a couple of times. I did actually see him, I believe, last summer.
Yeah, I remember him telling me about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really nice. We had a really good time in Brighton, but other than him, I haven't seen anyone from my year group, which is really sad because I've been wanting to, keep in touch with them.
I think it's tricky, isn't it? Because everybody starts to get busy with their own lives and stuff like that, so it's hard. So whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for coming on this podcast, and it gives me an excuse to be nosy into other people's lives, you know. If you want to just introduce yourself and what you're doing at the moment and stuff, do that for me. That would be lovely.
Yeah. So my name's Alexander Derry. I am a 24-year-old aspiring cinematographer, currently based in the southeast of England. I'm of Danish and English descent, and I've lived in Denmark for 17 years until I moved over to the UK in 2013. And I've just been, since arriving in the UK, I've done a few kind of odd jobs here and there, primarily working as a runner. And then obviously I came to film school eventually after finishing sixth form. And well, that's obviously where I met you as well. Yeah, no.
Let's talk about our experience of that, because I feel like that's an interesting thing that I think a lot of people, because there's a lot of things out there going, is it actually worth going to any of these sort of film schools and stuff? So I'd love to hear your opinion on that, because there's pros and cons, isn't there?
It's a bit of a hot topic, really, isn't it? Because I follow this subreddit called just Filmmakers, and there is definitely a lot of talk on that particular subreddit about, is it worth going to film school? And I think if you're someone who is interested in getting into the industry and you want to establish a baseline of knowledge about cameras or production or pre-production, whatever really kind of tickles your fancy, I think it's a really good base layer for meeting people and for learning some key technical skills, as well as just kind of getting a good overall understanding. And obviously, you can choose to go as much into depth as possible, especially when you get into the later years.
Yeah.
I think I definitely felt like in year 3, when we were doing, say, our dissertation, that's when I felt like, okay, now this is university level stuff that we're doing, and that felt quite refreshing. So that's my opinion, at least. But I also think that there's a lot of value in doing the more practical approach, where you just go, you're sending your CVs out left, right, and centre to whoever is within the industry, and taking the internships that might pop up, and selling yourself and getting the skills that way. But yeah, for me personally, I've kind of done a bit of both, and I think that to me has meant that I've been a bit more rounded. So I've not just been a tech head.
That's cool.
That has been totally focused on just learning cameras and equipment, and knowing that you can adjust this thing here, and it makes it helps with your LUT or whatever. But also being able to understand some of the cultural history of film, and being able to understand the more sort of intricate elements that aren't technical, the softer side of film, if you will. And I think that's a really good approach to have. But hey, that's just my opinion.
No, that's a good answer, man. Thank you. No, that's really good. No, I agree in part. I enjoyed the overall experience. My 3rd year was a bit messy, but that was because of my mental health and everything. I think I turned into a bit of a dick, which I have learnt from. And as life is,
hey man, from a fellow dick, I think
that. No, I actually joked about it with my partner the other day when I said I was going to talk to you, and I was like, when I first met him, I did not like him. But no, it's good. It's good. I think we sort of like it. Yeah, for me, film school was interesting because I've never been an academic, so being dyslexic, so I've never been a hugely academic person. So I think each year of film school I had like my breakdown. At least each year I had like, why am I here?
Yeah, what am I doing?
So we learn from those things, and also
absolutely.
I think if you're not having, like, this is to anybody listening that wants to do this, if you're not having a breakdown or you're not getting upset about stuff, you don't really care about it. If you're not like having a tough time, you don't really care about it. So
I think
go on.
I definitely felt like I became a lot more aware of other people's. I mean, you mentioned mental health, and I feel like that's something that really started to come into light, especially in my 2nd year. I felt like, wow, there's a lot of mental health issues here, and that I think that is in part because as a creative, you're always on this sort of very difficult balance between having a lot of confidence and suddenly feeling like you don't have any confidence at all. I mean, that's been my chief struggle, even now, when, I mean, this lockdown has had a real massive toll on that. But you're always on this sort of verge of like being really confident, like, yeah, I know what I'm doing, I feel really good about it. And the next moment you're like, fuck, why am I even here? Like, nobody agrees with my ideas, or no, I don't feel like I know enough, or people are better than I am at coming up with scripts or whatever. I mean, especially that horrendous script that I did, the initial one with like the nuclear launch stuff that I wanted to pitch.
Oh yeah, I remember.
It's one of those things that I'd rather just kind of in the past. I did actually try and make it a little bit better. I tried to put it into a real history, like an actual historical event that happened. I tried to put that spin onto it, instead of making it that kind of gung-ho American.
Yeah, because I know that you.
It was really bad.
Yeah, because I know you've always been like deeply interested in like history and stuff like that.
Very much so.
It always used to amaze me that John would be like, when we were learning about the history of film, he'd be like, "What are we learning about this boring shit for?" And I'd be like, "No, it's like important to learn about what's happened before to like, you know, stuff like that." So
yeah, absolutely.
I really found that like really interesting, all that stuff. I was like, you know, when someone says if they built a time machine, where would you go? I'd go straight to the past. I wouldn't be bothered about the future, to be honest.
Yeah. What's that scene in Deadpool? Is it Deadpool 1 or 2? Where he goes
two.
back, I think it's the second one,
Yeah.
where he goes back in time and he's like standing there over Hitler's grave. He's like, I can't do it. I think you'd definitely be tempted to go back in time and do something that you would perhaps mess up the timeline quite significantly.
Yeah. You'd have Doc Brown from Back to the Future shouting in your ear, you know?
Yeah, exactly. The whole converging timelines thing. You have to go back in time to stop yourself from changing the timeline.
Yeah, no. So no, but I think it is important. Like, I'm not making like lighthearted of what happened in my third year and stuff. But I'd say because it definitely was like a rough time for me, and I made a rough time for other people as well. I'd probably say to people like, try and stay off antidepressants. There you go. That's my lesson. But anyway, no, I'd say with anything and anything creative is just to learn from each production or each thing that you do.
And also to learn from each other, because I think that was probably the most valuable thing I learned in the third year, was that throughout I think one of the reasons why I came off as quite arrogant. Oh, I'm being called by someone else. Just give me a moment.
It's okay, no worries.
No, it's okay. I was getting a call from someone else. Don't know why. Anyway, one of the reasons why in the first and second year I think I came off as being quite arrogant was that, first of all, the stuff that I'd learnt, the stuff that we were learning in the first year, I'd already done that in sixth form.
Yeah,
so it's like,
I remember you saying,
this is a breeze, man. Why the hell am I learning all of this again? And you know, I was getting good grades and whatnot. So I think I felt a certain level of like superiority, which obviously came off as being quite hostile towards others, and especially in the second year where, you know, I still had that feeling, and that's also why I just didn't make any very good connections in those 2 years, and why I was not very well liked by that point. And I think by the third year, that's when I then learned that, okay, I don't know everything. I know that I need to increase my own knowledge, but also learn from others and understand that they have a better understanding of, like, for example, do you remember Sarah? Sarah Britton?
Yeah, Sarah Britton, yeah. I actually saw her a couple of months ago, actually.
Oh, cool.
No, we went to a talk at the new building for film school, actually. We went to a
brilliant
runners talk, and she was there, so yeah.
Oh, that's really good, because I've been thinking about her and wondering what she's been up to. I've been really bad at keeping in touch with people, not gonna lie. But when we were working on Brood, for example, I kind of accepted that, okay, I know some stuff about, it's just about this thing I'm doing tomorrow. That's what they were calling about. What I understood and what I learned was that, okay, I know stuff about the camera. I know what I'm doing with the camera. But in terms of lighting, that's my weak point, which is, you know, I don't think you should ever expect to know everything you can about everything as a cinematographer. You're always learning. Yeah. And that's what I learned as well. And I learned a lot from Sarah by asking her, okay, I have this idea in my head as to how we're going to light this, but do you agree with me, or do you have another thought that might improve this?
Yeah.
And I think that it made for a much better work environment, because you're because in that sense you're respecting another person's skills as well as understanding your own limitations. And I think that's actually what I'd say that's a key thing that you learn at film school, is to kind of mellow out a little bit, and to also learn to be humble and to learn from your peers. And that I really felt like I learned a hell of a lot more during the 3 months of preparing for Brood and filming Brood than I did I'd say even in the first 2 years of film school.
Yeah, no, that's fair. No, that the third year was like extremely like intense and like condensed. I think it was it was quite a shock to a lot of people, to their systems, I think, to be honest. And stuff like that. But yeah, no, I 100% like agree with your points. So I think that's the main thing that I took away from shooting my grad film, was that in the role as a director, speaking from my doing that, it was very much, what I didn't do was respect my crew, and I didn't do it on purposely. I was completely like out of it, to be honest. And I am guilty sometimes, because I like to talk, and sometimes I think something in my head and then it just comes out. But I definitely 100% learnt that as a director, it's your responsibility to look after the crew and to treat them like your family, and go, okay, this, and also I think the whole thing about a director, it being their film, now looking over it, I'm like, as soon as I've written it, if I have written it, or as soon as my idea has been picked, it's not my film anymore. We need to give it to everybody, and as a crew, we need to work together to create the thing. It's not one significant person's vision. It's 15 or 10 or 100 people's.
There's that whole thing. There's no I in team, and that's what I think film is teamwork. It's like playing a football game, or you have to coordinate, and you need to understand each other and each other's strengths and limitations in order to create something together.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And 100% to like lift, they say the script is a blueprint. It's to lift the written word off the page. The last thing you want to do is look at a script and go, we shot exactly what it said on the paper, or exactly what we had prepared, like in shot lists and stuff. I'd say probably like as well as you, I'd say, and I could tell in that third year you were like knuckled down, and you were like, I'm gonna do like the best I can for this. And this isn't me ass kissing, and it wasn't me ass kissing the other week, but Brood is like the best film that came out of that year. It was it was beautiful. I showed it to my partner last week, and he's quite brutally honest. When I showed it my graduation film, and like we do, we write stuff or we make stuff, and it gets very personal. So and when someone gives a very blunt opinion, you're like, fuck off, I worked hard on this.
Yeah, no, because it comes from the heart. So you feel that kind of, it's like being sucker punched.
Yeah, it's like, us men, we're never experienced giving birth, but it's like giving birth to it's an idea child.
Here's my child. Do you like it?
So, and he said I showed it to him like ages ago, and he said, oh yeah, the film's all right, but I don't particularly like the lead actress's performance. And I was like, what the hell? I was like, I worked really hard on that and stuff. And I like, said I had a massive breakdown over this film. How dare you say that? But I think the key thing is, like, when you look back at your old stuff, it's good that you identify the bad things, or not the bad things, but like the things you should improve upon and stuff. And stuff like that. But Jess and you guys and the crew on that you did like such an amazing job on that. And also,
Thank you.
when we had the end of year screening at that cinema in Lewis, and everyone stood up and clapped, I was like, yeah, you know, that's that, yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons why it became the thing that it became was I mean, I have to quickly add this before I say anything else. I want to kind of take my figurative hat off to all the guys that were and gals that were doing more than one shoot. Like, all
Yeah.
the, I mean,
same, yeah.
Crown Fit for a Prince or King. I can't remember the title. It's really bad, but that one obviously did quite well in the festival circuit.
Yeah.
And it's a good looking film.
It
looks great, and the acting's really solid. So I think that one is. I think that one deserves a worthy mention as well, because that was solid work on that.
Yeah, like 100% agree. Yeah.
And again, as I said, hats off to the guys that did two productions, and not just one. But also secretly, screw you guys for taking the fucking size lenses. We were stuck with the Sanyos for like the whole week. And I couldn't get the freaking size
every
lenses.
crew was fighting over those sets.
Oh my god, can I have the size lenses?
Yeah.
No, you fucking don't. Anyway, it's okay, because one of the things about using digital is that you get a very crisp image, but sometimes it's almost too crisp. So you need to actually dumb down the image a little bit by using a slightly older lens, or using a lens that isn't quite as super crisp as, say, the size lenses that we got, the nice and all the nice anamorphic lenses and such. That, yeah. Anyway, but again, hats off to those guys. But again, going back to what I was going to say was that I put a lot of effort into researching and understanding as much of the script as I possibly could in the process of making Brood. Because we spent like 3 months or so. I think after December, we spent like 3 months just kind of going, okay, looking at the scripts, shot listing. I did storyboards as well, which I've still got notes from when I did this. Yeah, I've still got them kicking around. And I spent a lot of effort into not just looking at other films, but actually looking at art and listening to some music. I did also watch some short films on. I think it was on. I can't remember the website. I think it's like Shorts of the Week or something like that.
Yeah, short films of the week. Yeah.
Yeah, and and I looked at, as I said, I looked at art as well, like just actual kind of paintings and physical art as a way of kind of gathering together all this visual inspiration to help create the image that was Brood. And I think that a lot of that also came down to communication. And I think that's also another skill that I learned quite a lot of was at film school, in the third year especially, was communication between myself being the DOP and Jess being the director / writer / editor. And I think by having that very honest and open communication about the themes and about what sort of elements we wanted to get out of each scene, meant that we could really narrow our focus down and get the kinds of shots we wanted. I think Alkin came in one day as I was reading one of the books in the the study room at the campus, and I remember Alkin coming in, and we ended up chatting for a little bit, and he mentioned this kind of these 3 points that you need to focus on when you're, as the DP, when you're looking at scenes. It's worth breaking it down into 3 points. So you've got, and those 3 points are the 3 points that are most important for that scene.
Yeah.
So, is what the character's feeling, is that important? Is that what we want to focus the audience on? Is the environment important? And I believe, because it's been a while since I've been thinking about this one.
That's okay.
So is character's feeling, character's environment, or is what the character's seeing important in that scene? I kept those 3 points in mind. Every time I looked at a scene in Brood, I'd be like, in this scene, it's important to see what the character sees. Or here, we're looking for a certain emotion from the character. And, that nice big wide shot. I believe it's a wide shot of I think it's towards the end of the film where you get this kind of big shot of the lake, and it's almost like a landscape shot. That is kind of the environment element blending together with a little bit of the feeling moment. So all three it's not just one that you choose.
Yeah.
They all kind of bleed a little bit into each other,
into each
but
other.
you choose one that's kind of the dominant one of that particular scene, and then you can work your way around that. It kind of narrows down the focus a lot more, and that's quite useful.
Yeah. The last thing you want to do is to get to set and go, actually, let's just put the camera here, and then you get some people that wouldn't go into as depth as you, and then you'd be like, so why are you putting the camera there? And they'd be like, oh, because it looks cool. And you'd be like,
yeah,
but why are you putting it there? So
yeah.
I think,
well, actually, I mean, one of the questions you've asked me is about who inspires me at the moment, and I think just to kind of in connection with this whole talking about camera, one of the people that inspires me camera-wise is Roger Deakins. I know that's a very stereotypical name to say, and everyone talks about Roger Deakins, but I love his work. I think he does an amazing job on a lot of his stuff. And actually, there was a live interview with him over Zoom on LinkedIn.
I watched one through. I think it was through. I don't know if you watch any of that stuff through Collider. He talked with his because I didn't know that he works with his wife. Him and his wife are a team, and they work together.
That's cool. That's something I didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So anyway, sorry. Continue. What you saying?
Yeah, no, it was on Cook Optics website that they were on their LinkedIn page that they shared that link. Oh. And at one point he mentioned that one of the key things that he focuses on when he's choosing shots and whatnot is that he doesn't like the gimmicky stuff, lens flares and lens whacking and shit like that. To him, the most important thing is immersing the audience in the film, and as to maintain that immersion, he tries to avoid the gimmicky stuff. And obviously, they were talking about 1917, which I still think is
it's like
it's a really good film, and
it gives me a headache thinking about it though. But in terms of like the technical abilities that they did, but it's like nuts.
It's incredible, but what's also really cool is that for the majority of that film, they show everything on a 40mm lens, apart from a few things that were shot, I believe, in slightly 35 or whatever, and anyway, but the key word's immersion, and I think that to me is key, because you as when you're essentially telling a story through visuals. And obviously it adds up with the acting and the music and the sets and whatnot. But you can have all of that, but if you have no camera and lighting, you don't have a story as such to show.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm slightly blabbering here a little bit, so I do apologise. But I think that immersion was also something I subconsciously was doing on Brood, where I tried to make the camera feel like it was part of like the ghost of the protagonist, like a protective spirit around the protagonist, and it was following her throughout her day and throughout her life as such. And I think that's as a DP, that's one of the key things you need to remember is always to you want to immerse your audience as much as possible.
I think I 100% agree. It's almost like saying, like, it should be like the camera is just dropped into the character's life.
Into this world.
Yeah,
exactly.
For that particular day or that particular week or whatever, it just happens to have seen this stuff at that time.
Exactly. And that's I think that's key. If you want to really get your audience going, like, boom, this is an exciting film. You just don't have a good story. have some good visuals to back it up.
Yeah, you shouldn't be sitting there. Well, the only people that do this, and we annoy our families for doing this, the only people that notice like technique is us. So
Yeah.
like my mum, I went to see 1917 with my mum and my stepdad, and I loved it. It was like beautifully shot and amazing.
Yeah.
And then all that I was talking about was how amazing how it was in one shot, and then my mum was talking about a totally different thing. And then I spent ages like thinking about the film where they could have possibly done cuts, and you can see some. And I was like talking all the way home with my mum, going, "Oh yeah, they've done it here, 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 here." And she was like, I wasn't paying attention in that." And I was like, "That's good, because that's what the audience shouldn't. They shouldn't notice any of the trickery. That's what they."
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's, I mean, I think that's one of the downsides to studying film is that you suddenly go, hang on a second, there's a hidden cut there. Or, the editing here is pretty solid. Or you start noticing, also when the editing's really bad, then you're like, oh, please stop. There have been times when I've like physically cringed at poor editing. I can't remember the last time that happened, but there have been times I've looked at a film and been like, there's something wrong here, and it's not quite working. And then after a while, it clicks, and you're like, it's the editing. The editing isn't solid. The camera's great, but the editing is really janky.
That is funny, because my twin brother isn't creative at all. So I used to get to the point where I'd watch films with him, and he'd be like, "You're really annoying to watch films with," and I was like, "Oh, okay." Yeah, because there's like a part of me, you know, because obviously when I was at film school, I did a lot of gaffering as well. And I was like, you know, when I see amazing light, I just go, that is beautiful. I love it. Like, it's like the lighting in that and the contrast in that is like amazing.
Then you really go like, that's incredible.
Yeah.
How they pulled that off. And the worst thing that happens is that especially after I'd done Brood, I was so like, whenever I watched the film, I'd be like, I wonder if they're using an HMI in that shot, or what sort of lamps are they using for this? And I wonder what lens that is. And like, I have to stop myself from thinking these things just so I could enjoy the film.
Yeah.
So,
and then sometimes I'd end up watching stuff, and then I'd see like a lovely push in or something, and then I'd talk about it, and then I start teaching people about it, and they'd be like, actually, we're trying to watch the film. We don't care what it's like.
Shut up! Just watch the freaking film.
So I'd say that is like a thing as well. If you're umming and ahhing about going into to do film school, and to even get into film, you've got to like live and breathe it. If you have if you like have any questions, like any unsureties, then I'd take some time and think about it for a while.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want to do is do film school, and we had a couple of people in there that, you know, throughout university there are people that are just there.
Yeah.
And you know, they always used to annoy me where you get people that didn't show up as much as they should, and then they still managed to get good grades, and then I'd be like, I'm stressing out here, and you're like,
No, I think I actually, in the first 2 years, that was definitely something that really bothered me. Like, I was genuinely frustrated at the fact that some of the people in my class were either not even showing up, didn't do the work, or just generally didn't give a shit. And I think that's poor taste, because not only is that a waste of money, because sadly, as it is here, where you have to essentially pay off your student loan, which I'm still trying to do, but it's taking a while.
That's all right.
You're essentially, that's just money down the drain, unless of course you've magically got that money already. I know a few guys that actually were able to pay it like that with no student loans. So again, hats off to them.
Good for them.
Yeah, good for them. But all the others that were like not showing up and whatnot, I kept thinking like, why are you even here? Like, why are you wasting not just your own time, but everyone else's time by not showing the same amount of effort? I think, and I think that effort element is definitely also something that kind of added to that kind of arrogance that I had in the first 2 years, where I was just like, I had a little bit of that kind of, you fucking morons, what are you thinking? Why are you here? Just fuck off. And that's a shame.
I have a feeling that wouldn't be something that you would say now, would it?
Oh no, not at all. I think definitely after the second year, just kind of going a little bit in reverse here. By the end of the second year, I really realised how lonely I was, and how I felt like I'd severely failed in making friends and kind of socialising with the people at film school, because I was being quite a bit of a dick quite a lot of the time, and I still feel a fair amount of guilt about some of the things that I said, and I hope that whoever's listening and was one of those people that felt belittled by me, I do sincerely apologise for that. Because I wasn't just being arrogant. I was also I have this issue, and it's still a thing, where because I've grown up in Denmark, I'm essentially, because I am half Danish, and a lot of my upbringing is Danish. And I think one of the values that the Danes have is that they're very straightforward about things. They don't wrap it up in niceties in the same way as the English do. It's not so much, terribly sorry to bother you, but would you be so kind as to just help me with this? It shouldn't take more than a second. Instead of kind of wrapping it all up in a lot of those niceties, it's just like, hey, you, come give me a hand here. Or,
We're kind of, us Brits, we kind of are a little bit like, we're a little bit sensitive, bless us. We're a little bit like, tell us the truth, but tell us it nicely. Tell us it nicely.
Yeah.
Like, I remember, I'm not saying this to you to like make you feel bad, but I remember we were having like a script reading group, and we were reading out a particular person's script, and I remember we were getting feedback from other people, and you said, which I was like, what the hell? You said, I just think the script's fucking boring, and I was like, what the fuck? I was like, first, this poor person, bless him, he wasn't particularly very confident. So I was like, what the fuck is this guy doing? He's literally just taking a shit on his work. But that's fine. We all have moments like that where we like say stuff and go, oh shit, I shouldn't have said it that way or whatever.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I still think about to this day. And when I do think about it, I'm like,
yeah.
Yikes!
But you say moments come into our lives for a reason to learn from them. So you've learned from them as a person.
Absolutely.
And so have I through my rough third year. I deeply apologise to the many people that I upset through that third year. To be honest, they're probably not listening because they don't want to talk to me, and that's completely fair. That's fine. But I've learned from that, and and there's no nastiness or anything anymore. It took me a while to realise and stuff. Not to realise, but sort of, when you go from being liked by everyone and then all of a sudden like not being liked through some people, it's hard to get your head round.
Oh yeah.
And I've realised, which I think everybody does when they get older, is that you don't have to be liked by everybody.
Yeah.
That's not the main thing. You just need to make sure that you're nice to everybody. And especially in this industry, because the last thing you want to do is to get round to like, oh, Harry Allen, he's a total dick, don't work with him.
Yeah, that's one thing that I realised again in the second year. I was like, shit, these are people that most likely will say, "Oh, Alexander Derry, don't work with him. He's a knobhead." But that's the last thing you need, because because that's another thing about this industry. It's not about who you know; it's about who knows you.
Yeah.
And you know, you want to be able to make a good impression with the people that might be spreading the word about you in certain circles. So yeah, it's definitely a learning process when you suddenly realise that you are in the wrong. But all the more reason to, you know, put the effort in to become that better person.
And I'd say to people to listen to, if you have moments like that, and you will have moments like that in creative or anything in life, just make sure you learn from them. That's all, really.
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
Also, don't, if you fucked up like that or fucked up in any way, just don't let it like dominate your life. Don't say, because for a while I was like, oh, I fucked up my life, I can't do anything, like I can't go back to film with all this with all this baggage. So that's why I took like a break for like a year and a half. I didn't think anything film, and I didn't feel creative whatsoever. And then I started dating my partner now, and it's amazing when you get somebody in your life that you care about and like believes in you. Then your stuff starts coming back. So now, like at the moment, I'm writing a new short and everything, which I'm hoping to do soon. And I've got the guy that played the homeless guy in my graduation film. He's going to be the lead guy, and stuff like that. So I think, which you can add in the minute. I think as a creative person, you'll have moments where you love it, and then you'll have moments where you're like, oh, I'm not sure if I should be doing this anymore because it's too hard. Yeah.
I think especially that bit about it being quite difficult. I think one of the hardest things for me personally is kind of getting myself out there, like actually saying, hey, I'm 24-year-old, I'd really like to get some more camera assistant work. You know, please hire me. Here's my CV, here's some reference, here's my portfolio. I think doing that is, to some people, it's just like, you know, there you go.
Yeah.
Have at it. But for some, it's quite a step to kind of go, okay.
It's a confidence thing.
It's a confidence thing. And I think a lot of my confidence was shattered into very small pieces after the 2 years. Not just, I mean, it wasn't just at film school. It kind of happened already in sixth form, where I was bullied and it was quite nasty. Education-wise, great, but socially fucking awful.
Okay.
And I think those kind of 4 years combined just really ended up with me having to really take a step back and be like, okay, I'm not particularly happy. There's a few things wrong with me. I can become someone else that is better. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is that confidence is key in kind of getting yourself out there. And I think, I mean, to answer one of your other questions that you've asked me.
Sorry, we will eventually get to the questions. It's going to be.
We're kind of getting a little bit of a.
That's fine. No, loop. I liked it. This is exactly what happened the last episode. We chatted for like an hour and a half, so it's fine.
But one of the things I have been up to since film school is I have worked on a few productions here and there. I've been an extra on a documentary, which is actually through. Do you remember Kath? From from film school. Her brother.
Best teacher at that place.
Love her.
Such a good laugh.
I'd like. She had a very good energy about her.
So chilled.
But her brother was looking for people that could, you know, be extras in this film. So I was like, yeah, sure, why not? That sounds fun.
Awesome. That's good.
I'm in I was up in London at that point anyway, so I thought, yeah, I'll go ahead. And it turned out, I made like 30 quid that day. It was like, you know, 12 hours work, but fuck it, I had so much fun working on it because it was, you know, we got to dress up and, you know, pretend a whole bunch because we're on this big green screen, right? So, and I really sympathise. I think it's Ian McKellen who at one point was like, when he was filming, I think it was The Hobbit, and it was all green screen, and it was just like, I can't do this. This is not acting. I didn't go to acting school for this. I really sympathise with that sentiment, because when you're on a green screen, you're suddenly like your imagination has to go into like complete overdrive, because like sure, it helps to wear the outfit and a costume and have a prop in your hand of some sort. That really helps. But imagining that you're sitting on a rooftop, shooting at people or at hostiles or whatever, and everything's green, it's really tricky to do. But it was a lot of fun, and we were like, I think we're like 8 or so guys, and quite a lot of them were from film school as well.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
So that was a good experience. And then obviously I've since then, what else have I worked on? I've worked as an intern at a documentary production house in Copenhagen.
Oh, sick! Cool.
For 3 months. So do you know the film The Act of Killing?
Yes. Yeah.
Joshua Oppenheimer's film. I met him as well, which was
cool.
pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. Had lunch with him and all that. I was like, I'm sitting next to Joshua fucking Oppenheimer, dude. But no, those 3 months were amazing. Like that was the best moment in 2019 was doing that for 3 months, and it was like there was like four days a week I'd work in the office as a researcher or helping with translation of documents from Danish into English. But on top of that, I also got invited on to doing some more camera-related things. Like, for example, I shot an interview with one of the directors. I set up all the lighting and cameras myself. I worked on one of the documentaries that was then shown at Copenhagen Docs Festival, which was a month and a half ago, I think, just before the lockdown. It was screened. So that was like, yes, I got to see it on the big screen. And I got to see my name on the big screen as well, which is such a good feeling.
Yeah, no, it is.
I have to say, it's a proper that's a proper confidence booster. But yeah, that was working at Final Cut for Real, which is the production company. Was just an absolute blast. I mean, the people working there they're fun, and they're super committed and intelligent, and just God, I could go on about it because it was such an experience being there for those 3 months. And I learned a really, really crucial skill, which was to pick up the phone. I know that sounds really weird, but like actually for me, picking up the phone and talking to people on the phone is quite daunting.
Yeah,
it has been quite daunting, especially when it's people you don't know.
No.
And I had to kind of conquer that fear and learn to pick up the phone and be like, Final Cut for Real, Alexander speaking. And
yeah, you almost have to amp yourself up at the phone. Like, I'm going to speak now. I'm going to speak now.
I'm going to do it now. I can take the message. I like to have a pad of paper out on standby for whenever the phone rang, so I could be like, okay, you need to talk to this person about this. Okay, cool. I'll tell them to call you back on this at this number here. It's just a silly little thing, but it really helped kind of lift me, because it was a personal barrier that I kind of got past. So yeah, that was really good. And then after the summer, I worked on a near future post-apocalyptic film with very low budget, kind of shot in East Sussex at a farm. That was 2 weeks of filming, and it was good fun. I didn't get paid for that one, unfortunately, but I did manage to get 3 World War II English Brody helmets.
Oh, sick! Nice one.
So that was like, yeah, okay, I'll take this as payment. Yeah, cool, thank you. they're like civil defense helmets, so they had like the W on the front for warden.
Oh, cool.
I was like, yes, score.
Nice one. Yeah.
And then I was working on X Factor just before the lockdown went
Tell us
into
about
effect.
tell us about that. So, what are you doing on that?
I mean, so I was working as the audience runner on this,
cool.
which was largely, it was kind of directing the audience into the studio, making sure that, because they wanted certain people sitting on certain rows, like the family members and friends sitting on particular rows, so the cameras could quickly like turn around and look around. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, there was also a little bit of kind of normal running being done as well. You know, setting up signs and getting water for certain people. And fortunately, I didn't have anything to do with all the quite often on. I don't know if have you worked on any TV stuff?
Yeah. I worked on Flog It.
Oh, cool.
BBC Flog It. Yeah. So that was fun. The people that queue up for those things, they are dedicated. They are so dedicated because they're waiting outside for about 6:30 in the morning till like 11 in the evening.
So. Fortunately, it wasn't quite like that for us. The audience didn't arrive till about, I think it was around 4 or 5, maybe. Maybe even later.
Question: Does the audience get in there for free, or do they have to pay to sit in the audience?
So we had 2 rounds of audiences. One was for the they have a thing called Generalprobe, which is sort of a test, kind of the test screening, or the where they go through the whole process of what cameras are filming now,
cool.
and then going through the performances. And it's at that point it's a very limited crowd of maybe like 50 people that turn up, and it's usually parents with their kids, because we had this rule about there weren't kids under the age of 11 weren't allowed in for the actual live show.
Oh.
Because there was some amount of swearing and things like that might have made them either parents be a bit kind of like, oh no, swear words, or there might be some lighting that might frighten them or something. I would rather not have crying kids in the audience.
That's fair enough. Yeah, that's fair enough.
But the actual audience then arrived later for the actual live show, and then I think it was about an hour and a half or so where we'd then get them set up, scan their tickets. That was one thing I did, was I'd scan people's tickets as they arrived, and then as soon as the audience were in, the rest of us audience runners were basically just kind of given free rein to prep wherever and help out wherever.
Cool. And did you have a headset on and everything, like with the?
Sadly not.
Oh really?
No, we had one chief runner.
Cool.
Who so actually the runner groups are split into 2. You had like the crew runners and you had the audience runners.
Yeah, that's the same.
Audience runners.
That's the same with the BBC. We had crowd control runners and then we had crew runners.
Yeah. And the crew runners were the ones that were doing all the food stations for the crew, making sure they had water and sweets and biscuits and whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas the audience runners, we just had to kind of get things set up for the audience, which was pretty straightforward, but it was good fun nonetheless. And then we had like a coordinator of sorts who was responsible for the audience runners, and then she had another sort of production manager over her. So there's a kind of bit of a hierarchy. But it's never that like you can't talk to the production manager. There's never that kind of like,
oh, that's good. Yeah.
Wall, so to speak. Because I mean that's one thing I do quite like about the Danes, that they are quite they're quite friendly, despite the whole honesty thing. They are. I do think the Danes can be quite friendly and quite honest with each other in a way that isn't just critique or feedback, but is also just kind of in a casual conversation sort of way.
Yeah, no, that's good.
So that was really positive.
I think that's really good when you go on to like your first like proper like mainstream big production, and the last thing you want to do is feel like you can't talk to anybody above you.
Yeah.
Because then it's like going into those first situations, which you probably agree, is super daunting. Like, crazy daunting.
I mean, what was initially daunting for me was just this sheer amount of people. I think there were about, I can't even remember how many there were. I think it was about 500 or 600 people in that audience.
Nice.
And I mean, this is like in the lead up to the lockdown as well. And, you know, it's quite mad. But that's also why, you know, speaking of that particular thing about the mass of audience, that's why they decided in the third week that I was supposed to be working, they cancelled the audience in like the last hour before I was supposed to turn up.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So, because the Danish government were like, we're putting a cap on the amount of people that can be in one room at once.
Yeah.
So initially it was 100, and then the following week it was 10. So it dropped quite significantly very quickly. So they decided that, okay, we'll do the live show, but without any audience. So, fortunately, I was still paid for my time that day.
That's
so
good.
That was really positive. I was like, yeah, okay, great. But by the following week, the restrictions were put down to become a lot harsher restrictions. So they were like, there's no production this week. No live show this Friday. So sorry guys. And that's when I then called them and said, look, all right, you're not filming this week. Okay, fine. I'm going to have to then say I'm out. Because things weren't going to just open up again like that next week. It was in for the long haul.
Okay,
and I thought I'd rather not be stuck in Denmark where, you know, without my family around me to support me.
Yeah.
And so I actually flew back the next day after I called them, and then the day after, or rather, I think it was the day I landed or the day after. That's when they put the border controls in Denmark. So
you timed that well.
Kind of got out before all the planes are grounded. But yeah, but it was weird because already in the lead up to that, kind of the crowds were starting to thin out more and more as the kind of the days progressed. So when I landed in Gatwick that day, I was like, why the fuck are there so many people here? This is insane. This is a proper infection cesspool right now. People standing next to each other and anyway. But now, you know, you can see the results of that with 30,000 dead. So hey.
Yeah. No. Yeah. That's let's not go into that.
Let's not go into politics because that would be a whole different podcast.
Yeah. Let's not do that. But no, that's cool. That sounds like a really interesting experience and stuff, and I bet that was.
It totally was. It really was.
Cool.
But
no.
But yeah,
what are you doing at the moment? Are you doing any work at the moment, or you managed to do any work at home, or?
Well, I mean, being as a camera assistant / aspiring cinematographer, there isn't really much to do. Because I don't know if you've noticed on shooting people and on various different Facebook groups where you can get work, there's not much really turning up. It's all pretty much either it's editors or color graders or people working in post-production that are getting some amount of work, but it's still very limited. Yeah, exactly, where they can work from home. But as you and I both know, it's when you're working on set, you're not just 5 people. You're 20 people at minimum, because you've got all the different crews and sub crews, and again that's gonna lead to a very healthy environment for the virus to spread.
Yeah, that's not wise.
So I've been trying to keep myself occupied with doing a bit of photography and just kind of filming bits and bobs. I've managed to borrow a Sony A7S.
Oh, sick! That's right.
So with three prime lenses, so I'm quite chuffed about that because this is significantly better than my 550D, which is classic DSLR camera that
The props.
it's only a, I think it's a 3/4 frame, whereas whereas the A7S is full frame.
Yeah.
So.
I
So I've been
still
doing a
want to
bit
get
of-
me one of those. I still desperately want to get me one of those. So,
The A7S, yeah.
yeah.
No, they're good cameras.
So,
Eat through batteries, but good cameras.
yeah.
I don't know if you've ever tried to leave an A7S turned on for more than an hour.
Yeah, no.
They
I
do
think.
tend to run out quite quickly.
Yeah, I think I remember getting taught at film school to just turn it off if you were like not using it for a little bit, just to like turn it off.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I do it quite religiously, actually. It's like, okay, I've done this shot, off.
Yeah.
And next shot, okay, done, off.
Yeah.
It just becomes kind of second nature to keep turning it on and off and on and off. Because yeah. Anyway,
What
what
would you say? What would you say, like at the moment, is like the best part of the industry, and then what would you say is like the bit that the industry needs to like improve on? Or it's entirely up to your reason if you want to answer the end bit. That it's entirely up to you.
No, it's a good question. I think one of the positive aspects of the industry is how we always. I mean, I feel like the technology in the film industry is constantly evolving. Like all the time, there's a new piece of kit coming out. There's a new type of camera that is lighter and has all the same functions as the one before that weighs 10 kilos more than the new one. And I think in that sense, it's really positive. You know how I mentioned the green screen stuff earlier?
Yeah.
I think one of the coolest things that has come out recently is the stagecraft thing that they did. On the Mandalorian.
Oh yes, yeah.
The way they filmed that is
that blew my mind.
brilliant.
I was
Brilliant.
like,
that's such a cool idea, and I don't know if I can maybe explain it a little bit, but it's essentially just a 3D tracked camera, and a whole wall of just
like,
of screens
it's
around.
nuts. They must have like saved so much money flying people everywhere to like Tanzania and all these like Star Wars locations.
Well, that's one thing, but also because it's obviously Star Wars, especially, it's very it is essentially a space fantasy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily define it as just sci-fi. It's space fantasy.
Yeah, it's a space opera.
Because come on, you've got lightsabers and force powers.
Yeah.
And things
You've got
that
wizards.
Is a little bit kind of,
you know, that's pretty much what they are.
Just kind of wacky technology that couldn't quite exist in the physical world. I mean, technically, it has been proven that you can't actually, you set yourself on fire with a lightsaber, pretty much.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I think that piece of technology is amazing because it also means that you could, like, let's say, for example, when I was working on this documentary, it was the setting that I was in on this green screen stage was 1953, Iran, during the coup. And if we had that kind of, the stagecraft element, we could have really been in that environment a lot more sort of mentally as well than we would have been if on just a green screen. And I think that's you look at the stuff that all the behind the scenes stuff from say on the prequels, for example, and it's all blue and green screen pretty much all the time. So if you could, imagine the Anakin versus Obi-Wan fight, but where they had access to those screens, that would be
would have been
quite
nuts.
Interesting. How would they get around that?
Yeah, I think it's also interesting to like if you look back of how that type of effect has changed from like painted backgrounds. So when you watch an old film where you're like, they're not really there, but it looks cool anyway because you appreciate the craft of it and stuff.
But in a way, the whole stagecraft thing is essentially the same as matte painting when you think about it.
Yeah,
because essentially you're painting the set and then projecting it onto a big screen. And I think that's super clever. That's such a smart way to go around it. So in that sense, I'd say that's a really positive aspect of the industry in terms of like how technology can change the way we work and makes it either easier for the actors and for the crew as well.
Yeah, If anybody is like interested in that, and you have like Disney Plus, watch this series of the behind the scenes stuff that they've been bringing out. It's like really interesting, like really like mind blowing stuff.
If you can't afford Disney Plus, you can also always just watch the behind the scenes stuff on YouTube. That's what I did.
Shh.
But don't tell Disney that. So, praise Lord Mickey.
Yeah, praise Lord Mickey. Yeah, that's taking over the world. Yeah. If anybody wants to give us a job from Disney, that'd be lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, just a little plug. If anybody wants to watch listen to, I did a review of the Mandalorian series on my podcast. So if anybody wants to listen to that, then feel free. I haven't done the last chapter, which is the best chapter in the series, which I believe. Because
don't spoil anything.
It's alright. I won't spoil it to you, but it's directed by Taika Waititi, and it's amazing. I love him.
He is good.
Yeah,
and that kind of leads into the second question about what I think needs to be improved. I think at the moment there's quite a heavy reliance on sequels, and there has been a reliance on sequels for the last 10, 15 years now.
Yeah.
And I think they're just essentially massive cash cows that are being milked dry of all the source material, and not really adding anything new to that. Well, I mean, Star Wars again being a very good example. I mean, I feel like the film industry needs to take higher risks in order to risks in terms of storytelling.
Yeah.
Not so much like going in, out of their way to pay millions of pounds towards a project that could be done for way less, but more so in the sense that telling new stories that can engage the audiences a lot more. Because don't get me wrong, I think popcorn flicks are great.
Yeah, they are great.
To say and watch I remember watching The Force Awakens.
I used to find sorry to interrupt you, but I used to find it interesting that you get the people at film school that be like, I only like art house films, and you'd be like, pardon my language, you'd be like, fuck off. If you got offered a gig to direct the next Marvel film or the next Star Wars film, would you say no? No.
I highly doubt you would. I would. I'd be like, yes, sign me up.
Yeah.
Sign me the fuck up.
I understand.
You can have my soul. Just let me work. Please.
I understand. The creative control in the studio system is tricky to keep that. Somehow Taika Waititi has managed to do both ends, which is amazing. So anyway, sorry.
No, but I think the industry needs to take higher risks with directors like Taika, because it helps kind of keep people's taste buds, film taste buds in action. Because let's be honest, with we've had a fuckload of Marvel films, and they're good fun to watch.
Yeah, they're
good fun to watch. I mean, I remember watching Endgame in the cinemas, being like, "This is fucking great! Hell yeah! Whoa! Look at all these heroes and shit." But like, it's a popcorn film. It's a film where you just go like, great. That's going to sound really weird in a podcast, but just munching down on popcorn and sweets, being like taking sweets from other people's popcorn holsters or whatever they're called, boxes. But they need to be a bit. The industry needs to be a bit more. We need to add some spice to this, to what is shown in cinemas, in order to make sure the film industry doesn't go stale.
Yes. I agree.
So, and that's where I feel like that's where Taika really steps in and has delivered some really great films and some. I mean, I think obviously the first one I watched was What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah,
which is also now the TV series,
thank you for recommending me that, because I watched that a couple of weeks ago, and I loved it. It was great.
I mean, the humour in it is so wry. I think that's just but I think that's kind of the New Zealand trait, really.
Yes,
it's just that kind of wry humour that's delivered with a very straight face. And I think that's great. I mean, but he also did Hunt for the Wilder People, which is also
that's really good as well.
It's funny, and it's got some really good moments, but also it's very heartfelt at the same time. And I think that's and it's the same with Jojo Rabbit, which I think is probably the best film I've seen recently.
Yeah, same. I agree. I loved it. It was amazing.
It's just got such a beautiful balance between kind of how easily you can lose your humanity, and lose your childhood in a situation where those sorts of things are not valued, and how important it is to maintain those and keep that kind of the imagination alive as well. I remember watching it in the cinema with my mum and my little sister, who's only 11, and they were both just completely like blown away by this film, and I think it's because it really resonates with people, and I think that's the kind of things that we need more of. By the way, have you read the screenplay for Jojo Rabbit?
No, I haven't. I want to get.
It's available. It's available on Daily Scripts, I think.
Okay, cool. Yeah, cool.
So it's actually really interesting to read because obviously, having watched the film, there are a lot of the scenes where you can kind of draw parallels between the two. But there are also a few scenes that were deleted in the final film, which kind of give a bit more backstory to Jojo and his family. But it's also fun to be able to read the book and then visualize the scenes from the film, almost when you've watched Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings and then read the books afterwards. You can go, oh, okay, I see the scene in my head as it was in the film.
Yeah, no, I want to start like collecting screenplays, to be honest. So I've got a couple already, but I want to start doing like more and stuff.
You can download the PDF formats of a lot of the scripts.
I kind of like the physical paper though. I kind of like doing.
But that's what I mean. You get the PDF format and you can print them out.
I guess. Yeah. Sometimes it's nice to get them like properly like binded in a book, and they have like nice
for sure.
But
I'm just a bit of a cheapskate on that film. I got the PDF format, and then I nicked one of my dad's Kindles and then stuck them all onto the Kindle so I could just read it on the Kindle instead, which was actually, it worked quite well.
Yeah, nice. I like looking at them as well, because as me trying to write, I always think my like directions and details in scenes are always a little bit like, I just hate trying to write. I like writing dialogue, but I find it hard to write the whole like detail of the scene, like making it sound interesting, rather than. But also, of course, I don't write scripts as such. I have tried, and it's very hard, and especially when you're trying to you talk about describing a scene, but also writing characters. I think is quite tricky because you're battling. Your own head is trying to write the dialogue as you would speak it, but you have to write it in a way that isn't you, and deviates from who you are. So you almost have to put on like different hats, in order to write the script. I always end up looking like a schizophrenic and end up talking in different voices and stuff. But it's like I end up looking like a nut job. But anyway, that's part of the fun.
Yeah. So do you feel like that's something that, because is that something you feel you've gotten better at since film school?
I haven't done it for a while, to be honest.
Right.
Just because I didn't feel the drive of doing it, but now I've got like 4 or 5 scripts that I've been working on like throughout. And then I've sort of had to say to myself, because I try and like do so much stuff, to the point that I'm like, I need to focus on one so I actually make it. And I want to try and, with this new one, because they always say, like, as a beginner, I'd say as well to anybody, which both of us are still in our very early days of figuring this out and stuff. Trust me, guys, if you come out of film school and you get your piece of paper with your degree, it's just a piece of paper. It means fuck all.
Until you actually, really start.
Yeah. Until you actually get in there and start, then that bit of paper, unlike other jobs, does not guarantee you work. You have to be good at what you do, or show enough passion that you will eventually be good at what you do.
and showing interest, and also showing that you're still keen to learn more, because you won't know everything coming out of film school. You will know a lot of things, but not enough to be able to say, I am this particular thing. Not yet.
Yeah, no, not yet. But yeah, I like the way I said that, and now I don't know what I was talking about.
No, we're talking about what sort of strengths, right, in terms of creative work, and that's also one of the questions you asked.
So, and as a dyslexic person, and I've never really liked English. I've never really got on with English. So script, even though it's hilarious that I was born here, but I never have never really got on with it. But script writing has helped me with that and stuff like that, which is good. And yeah, I'd rather read a script than a novel, but that's just me. But yeah, what would
the script's also nice to read though, because it's in that kind of format where it's like description of scene, dialogue, bit of kind of actions and stuff, and you can sort of piece it together a lot more quickly. I find that when you're reading a book, because I often do that thing where you read and you go, shit, I didn't read any of that, and you have to start back again from the beginning. You're like, fuck.
Yeah, like I did not absorb any of that.
I completely gloss over these last 2 pages. I have to go back now. Christ. Okay, here we go again.
Yeah, no, but also I'd say if you don't think you're a good writer, I don't think I'm a brilliant writer, but I still manage to write occasionally and push myself to write. But also, I'd say to people out there that if you're wondering how to start, just get out and just do your own stuff. Just rather than waiting for opportunities to happen, just do your own stuff.
And I think that's also something you can do a little bit of while you're in lockdown, because I mean, as I mentioned before, I'm borrowing my aunt's camera, and an idea popped into my head the other day where it's like, I've got some equipment. I've got a couple of redheads, which, by the way, that's not like for those that don't know what that is. that doesn't mean I've got 2 redheaded women. It means that I've got.
It could be a couple of redheads. It could be a couple of redheads,
Oh yeah. For those who can't see, Harry's obviously.
This podcast is the Redheaded Boy podcast. So
yeah, exactly. No, but but I've got some equipment. I've got some reflectors. I've got bits and bobs, and I thought, well, if if I use elements that I've got in my house, a few practical lamps, and maybe some of the stuff that's in my dad's shed. I know he's got some work lamps, for example. I should just use that and try to set up a little lighting setup. You don't need big lamps either. You can get away with a few practicals here and there, as long as you can get a nice shot out of it. I mean, you don't even need a fancy camera. You can shoot stuff on an iPhone nowadays, and it still looks great. Provided you've got the right amount of light. But so that's.
I'd say that would be something to say to the beginners as well. Don't get bogged down with all the this is the best thing that this is the best camera out there at the moment. It's not all about that.
You don't need the best equipment available. You can shoot a lot of things just with your phone and a decent microphone if you've got one.
It's all about decent sound, guys. Sound is
decent sound. You do decent sound and decent light. The camera doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's nice. It is nice to have a nice camera. Don't get me wrong. But you can get away with quite a lot with just a phone camera. But yeah, I'd also say, as a fellow beginner, practice. That's the best thing you can do nowadays. And if it's taking macro shots, or if it's just doing pictures, or actually just filming the way a leaf falls off a branch, or the way your plant sits in a window, whatever. just keep practicing. That's the best thing you can do is at the moment, especially because you're probably locked indoors for the time being, and not encouraged to go outside. So if you're able to do a few setups in your own house, do it. I mean, there's nothing stopping you. The only thing that you can't do at the moment is actually go out and work in the film industry. So you keep honing your skills in the meantime. That's what I plan to do anyway.
Because and if you go to film school and get that bit of paper and then decide that you're not going to do it for like ages, you will lose it. It won't stick in your brain.
Oh God, yeah. No, there's so much stuff that I don't remember from film school because I haven't done that particular thing for a long time. Like I can't even remember all the light types and whatnot because it's like, I obviously know LEDs and redheads and the HMIs, but there's like way more than that. You've got fluorescence and kinos and goodness knows what else. And remembering all those terms is tricky. Yeah, it's to say the least. Yeah. But as long as you've got like the base knowledge in your head, you'll be fine. Yeah. There's it's just get out, not get out, stay indoors. But keep practicing. That's my word of advice for now. And as soon as you can go out and doesn't have to. You can film with your mates. You can do whatever, man. Be free.
Yeah. Also, it's like if you do a load of stuff, that can help you get work. It's like you can go to a production company or something and say, "This is what I've done. This is how many films I've shot in the past year and a half." The last thing they want to do is have some young person go up to them and go, "I really desperately want to be a filmmaker," and then they go, "So what? So what have you made?" "Well, nothing, because I thought I'd wait for a job to come along." And you're like, "Well,
Actually, that's another thing. Because you also, I remember one of the questions you asked is, the defining moment.
Yes.
For filmmaking. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested in that. Yeah.
For me, it's not really just one moment. I think it's actually three. I mentioned one of them earlier being when I was working at Final Cut for Real, and I really felt kind of energized by, my own personal growth and this kind of exploring my strengths and weaknesses as over the course of these 3 months. That really, like by the end of it, I actually felt sad that I had to leave.
See, that's nice though. That's nice.
Because I really felt like, okay, here is an environment that's positive and I feel energized by it, and I love, I actually cycled to work for 3 months, and it was great. I loved it. I mean, Copenhagen generally is just a great place to cycle around in. But yeah, that was like the moment was like, now I want to get into the industry. But to go even further back than that, when I was about, I think I was around 13, maybe even younger, maybe 12 or 13. I had a student counsellor at my school. It doesn't matter. I was in like sixth grade, 7th grade, and I remember the student counsellor saying to me after I said that I was interested in getting into film and TV. He said that I shouldn't bother because it required that I had a massive portfolio and that I'd worked in the industry for many years, and I wasn't a likely candidate for that. And I was like 12, 13 at this time, and he was telling me not to bother and to go do something else. And it was also because he then said that he tried and he didn't get in. So
I love the head movement.
Rocking my head left and right here. But yeah, but that in that moment, I was like, well, first of all, I thought, what a dickhead. But that also became like my main motivator to go, fuck you, I'm going to go do film school and prove you wrong. Yeah. And I think that moment was when I really decided, like, I'm going to go down this film route. I'm going to prove this guy that I can get into this industry, and that I know what I want, and that I can get it. And, you know, hey, I managed to get a first with honours, so I'm
well
that's
done.
A proper,
well
that's
done.
a proper,
no,
like,
well done
fuck
for
you
that.
to my student counsellor back in 2007 or so.
Yeah. But that is funny that you say that, because I had like almost the exact same experience. So I went to actually, let me answer my own question. I might as well. So when I was, so if people that don't know, I was born with cerebral palsy diplegia, and it mainly affects like the strengths in my limbs and stuff. So like my legs and stuff. So when I was younger, I couldn't go out and ride a bike like the same as my twin brother and stuff like that. So I spent a lot of the time in front of the television, so watching films and stuff. So that was like my first thing. Like I was glued to like that medium. To the point that my mum used to ban television in the morning because I just wouldn't do anything. Like she'd be trying to get me dressed for school, and I would just be staring at the television. So I love it that we're doing this for a podcast, and you're still like adjusting the lighting and everything. That's beautiful. I love it. That's funny.
That it's funny that you mentioned the whole like your mum and being glued to the TV.
Yeah.
Actually, when I was much younger, this is like 2001. So ages ago, back in the day, 19 years ago, I actually went out to my mum's work quite a lot. My mum used to work for the Danish Broadcasting Company, or corporation rather, which is essentially the Danish BBC.
Cool.
And she used to work out there, and sometimes she'd bring me along, and you know, she would occasionally have to go down to various different departments where they might have props or sets or studios being set up and whatnot. So I was already then being exposed to this environment. So I was quite fortunate in that sense. But I think that also really made me think, ooh, film and TV, that seems exciting because you're always making something new.
Yeah.
A new world or a new kind of setup or a new story. All those things together really, I don't know, that really enticed me even further. So I've been groomed from the beginning, really.
No, I like, so I had that when I was younger, of watching a lot of television just because I couldn't go out and do physical stuff like that. And then when I went to college, my first round of college, because my GCSEs were shit. So I did college twice. So I went to college and sort of worked my way up from doing a level 1 media and then like working my way up to film school and everything. So when I got a degree, even though it was deeply stressful, I was like, well done me. And I remember going to this college and talking to somebody and saying like a career person or something like that. And they asked me what I wanted to do for a living, and I was in the meeting with my mum. And I said, oh, I want to be a filmmaker. And this lady turned around and said, oh, we need to think of something more realistic.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. I was like, and like me and my mum like partly went in on this woman, and my mum was like, no, he can like, my mum always used to say like, oh, you can shoot for the stars and you might get to the top of the trees. So it's there's no need to like narrow yourself down to, stuff like that. So that was sort of like my sort of like, fuck you, I'm going to try and do this. So when one of us wins a BAFTA or something, or if we do, you'll be like, to that one person.
And that didn't believe in me, fuck you. No, but ironically, there's a part of me that is kind of thankful for it, because it also, that kind of motivated me to do what I wanted to do. I don't think if that person had just been like, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea, it'd be a little less enticed, because you're not trying to prove anything. So I definitely say having those kinds of goals is also quite important as a filmmaker as well.
Yeah.
Because you need that kind of like, okay, you need that long-term goal. You need to aim at something in the horizon.
Yeah. So you've leaded into like my last question quite well, actually. So what would you say is like your creative like end goal at this time? It could be like, it doesn't have to be like the end goal. It could be like in the next couple of months or in the next year. It doesn't have to be, you know, when you're like 55 and.
I'd like to be able to retire at 70 and buy a little house in France and be able to drink wine until I die. No, that's not. No, I'd rather be chased off the cliff by a bunch of topless women into my grave. No, that's a scene from Monty Python.
Right.
So those of you who.
Oh yeah, no, it is as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I'm not deliberately being sexist or anything. That was genuinely a reference to something else.
That's good. Yeah, no, I'd say that is a key thing as well. If you're going to go on set and stuff, just make sure you've watched a decent amount of films, because even like the people that have been in the industry for years, if they go up to you and they start talking about Blade Runner and you don't know what it is, then you kind of look a bit like an idiot.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And you need to always be sort of, you always
in the
need
loop.
to be keeping up with. Yeah. You have to be in the loop all the time, and that's really hard, especially at the moment where you know it's very easy, because that's something I really need to improve on. That's one thing that we haven't answered, or that I haven't answered, is it's really easy just to kind of fall back and procrastinate and not do anything, and I'm guilty of that as well myself. Like if I don't, at the moment, I don't really have a short-term goal other than I'm just taking day by day as it comes and goes, and just doing whatever really kind of catches my interest that day. You know, one day I might sit and play piano for a bit, and that'll be like my main thing. Or today I'm just going to watch a bunch of videos on YouTube. I'm not doing anything productive as such. So it's really easy to kind of lose track of what my short-term goals are. So I think right here and now, my main goal is just to kind of keep feeding my creativity as much as possible by, you know, I watch videos on YouTube quite a lot from Film Riot and Corridor Digital and just over every frame of painting and Now You See It. I'm doing a massive plug-in here, guys. If you want to feature me in videos, just give me a shout. But that's just to name a few. But these guys, they always have some really fascinating subjects to talk about, and really go into depth about some of the themes in various different films. And in that way, I feel like that really helps kind of feed your brain with research.
Yeah.
But you then also need to turn that research into something creative and productive. So, you know, you can spend days, weeks watching videos about the hidden meaning in, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example here, the hidden meaning in Life of Brian, or some other film where you're like, oh, that seems interesting. You click it and that's a 20-minute long video. Oh, that's 20 minutes of your day just gone. And it's easy to do that. And it is interesting, and, you know, go for it. But you also need to turn that into something creative. And that's something that, you know, for the last few weeks, I haven't done much of, and I'm very much guilty of not kind of getting my finger out of a certain dark place, and actually getting stuff done. Yeah, so I'm a very, very dark sense of humour sometimes.
That's all right. Thanks for that image as well. Thanks for that.
But no, so creatively, right here and now, it's for me is taking pictures,
cool.
doing some little video projects. You know, even if it's a silly thing, but like I edited together a video for my brother's 18th.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah. I saw that. It was good.
And that is it's nice to be able to go, okay, I'm doing this for someone else. So in a way, that's kind of like having a client. Um, and by having that in mind, you can kind of set yourself a little goal, saying, okay, I've got 5 days to complete a fun edit for my brother. And that's what I did. I worked 5 days, did 2 days of research. 1 day of just compiling all the stuff together and finding funny like memes and such to throw into the video as well. And then the last 2 days were spent just piecing the whole thing piecing the whole thing together into a 5.5 minute video.
No, that's cool.
So I think that's that. You just got to set yourself small goals, achievable goals, because otherwise everything's baby steps. You're not going to take a massive leap to begin with. It's always going to be baby steps towards what you want and what you really desire. And I think that's true for not just about filmmaking, but anything in life. If you want to train with something, you don't start with the heaviest weights first. You go for the 2.5 kilo, 5 kilo weights before you move on to the 10, 20s, and 30 kilo weights.
Yeah, you build your way up. Yeah,
you build your way up, and I think that's also the case for filmmaking.
Yeah, cool. No, I 100% agree, and also I'd say like deadlines are like the key.
Set yourself deadlines.
Yeah, especially for yourself, because you'd be like, oh, I really want to make this film, or I really want to do this project, and then you'll just never get around to doing it. So
yeah, and that's, but then also you break that the elements of whatever thing you're doing, break that into smaller pieces, because otherwise you're gonna look at the deadline and be like, oh my god, I've set myself a deadline. I'm about
too daunted by
panic.
it. Yeah,
you're too daunted by it, and so break it down, break everything down into small pieces, chip away at it, and by the end of it, suddenly you realise you've got it done.
Yeah, that's cool. That's some like solid advice there, guys.
Inspirational words. Put that on a poster.
No, cool. All right, then I'm gonna wrap it up, because we like nearly been talking for like 2 hours, nearly like an hour and a quarter. So, but no, thanks so much for talking, Alex. I really appreciate it. And
thank you for having me.
It's okay, no worries. We have to chat again and whatever and stuff like that. And if anybody fancies giving Alex a job, I'd recommend him. He's a very lovely chap. Used to be an arsehole, but he's a lovely chap now. So
I used to be bad. Now I'm good.
So and I hope.
Thanks for having me on, and it was really, really interesting to kind of talk about various different elements.
No,
really,
it's good. This is like exactly, because I've done like hospital radio and stuff like that, and obviously at the moment I can't do that. So I thought that I sort of want this podcast to be like all about creative people and stuff, and talking about creativity and stuff like that. So I
think that's I really admire that. I really genuinely do. I think that's really nice, and that's also that's a project you've set yourself.
Yeah.
And you're asking people, you're being proactive about asking people. I think that's really positive, man.
Oh, cheers! Thanks, man. No,
hats off.
Cheers. No, I hope your family keep all safe and everything, and we must definitely try and when it's all done, we have to meet up in Brighton and have a beer or something.
I'm very much down for that.
Have a bit of a sesh.
Yeah. bit of a beer sesh.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it would be really lovely to also see some of the other people from film school.
Yeah.
Because I do actually miss quite a lot of them. There's a few of them where I'd be like, oh.
And that was my conversation with Alexander Derry. Thank you so much, Alex, for coming on. We proper put the worlds to right and dived into our filmmaking processes, and I wish you all the best of luck in all your future creative endeavours. I'm super looking forward to seeing you jump behind the camera again as a cinematographer. Alex is super talented, and he shot the most beautiful and the best film in our year group at film school. If you guys want to watch it, it's called Brood. Type it in Vimeo if you fancy watching that. I 100% recommend. Alex super worked hard on that film, and the visuals are beautiful. The team that worked on that film are amazing. So thank you, Alex, for coming on, and thank you guys for listening to that episode. I know it was another long one. Me and Alex ended up talking, an hour and 45 minutes? But it was a super awesome conversation. Couldn't cut most of it out, so yeah. So thank you guys for listening to this episode 9 of the Redhead Boy podcast with me. Thank you so much. And like always, I'm going to end with something a little lighthearted. And this one is another poem that I found that I just think is super, super cool. So have a cheeky listen, and until next time, you guys take care.
Tell me the one about the virus again, then I'll go to bed.
But my boy, you're growing weary, sleepy thoughts about your head.
Please, that one's my favourite. I promise just once more.
Okay, snuggle down, my boy, though I know you know full well. The story starts before then, in a world I once would dwell. It was a world of waste and wonder, of poverty and plenty, back before we understood why hindsight's 2020. You see, the people came up with companies to trade across all lands, but they swelled and got much bigger than we ever could have planned. We'd always had our wants, but now it got so quick. You could have anything you dreamed of in a day, and with a click. We noticed families had stopped talking. That's not to say they never spoke, but the meaning must have melted, and the work-life balance broke. And the children's eyes grew squarer, and every toddler had a phone. They filtered out the imperfections, but amidst the noise, they felt alone. And every day the skies grew thicker, till you couldn't see the stars. So we flew in planes to find them, while down below, we filled our cars. We'd drive around all day in circles. We'd forgotten how to run. We swapped the grass for tarmac, shrunk the parks till there were none. We filled the sea with plastic, because our waste was never capped, until each day when you went fishing, you'd pull them out, already wrapped. And while we drank and smoked and gambled, our leaders taught us why. It's best to not upset the lobbies. More convenient to die. But then in 2020, a new virus came our way. The governments reacted and told us all to hide away. But while we all were hidden, amidst the fear and all the while, the people dusted off their instincts. They remembered how to smile. They started clapping to say thank you and calling up their mums. And while the car keys gathered dust, they would look forward to their runs. And with the skies less full of voyagers, the earth began to breathe, and the beaches bore new wildlife that scuttled off into the seas. Some people started dancing, some were singing, some were baking. We'd grown so used to bad news, but saw good news was in the making. And so when we found the cure, and were allowed to go outside, we all preferred the world we found to the one we'd left behind. Old habits became extinct, and they made way for the new, and every simple act of kindness was now given its due.
But why did it take a virus to bring the people back together?
Well, sometimes you've got to get sick, my boy, before you start feeling better. Now lie down and dream of tomorrow, and all the things that we can do. And who knows, if you dream hard enough, maybe some of them will come true. We now call it the Great Realization. And yes, since then there have been many. But that's the story of how it started, and why hindsight's 2020.